everyone. Welcome to the October version of the Halloween version of our monthly meeting. So today we will, on the agenda, try to get this to scroll. There we go. So on the agenda, we're going to have probably a fairly short meeting this time around. But we'll start with an EVX project update. So we have Jen from EnviroCenter here to actually talk about the progress to date and the numbers we have for the what we've done. You'll see that we have very few activities left to do. We actually have one more community event that we'll be doing on November 19th. But aside from that, we're done. We have a few corporate events that we're going to be doing. But most of the activities are done for this year, and we're looking at planning for next year. So the next thing we'll do is that our friend Mitchell is going to talk about the Electric Mobility Canada conference that occurred in can't remember the exact dates. It's on this on the screen in the presentation. But anyways, Electric Mobility Canada is an organization that we are, EVCO that is, we are members of, and it's generally consists of industry players in the electric mobility field. So you've got hydro companies, you've got electric car OEMs, you've got truck OEMs, you've got charging station manufacturers and other people that are in the interested in electric mobility. So they had a conference in Toronto, and Mitchell and I attended that. So Mitchell will talk about in general some of the stuff that was discussed, and then I'll talk a bit about the medium and heavy duty vehicles and what they were mentioning about those at the conference. Then we'll go to Mike, who will do the EV news as usual. Lots of EV news again this month. As usual. Then we'll talk about past and future events. And when I started doing the presentation and reviewing the events from October, I was wondering how come it seemed like we had done lots of stuff, but then when I started adding up the events, I saw that yes, we did do a lot of things. So was again a busy month, a bit less busy than September and August, but it was quite busy. So we'll go over that, talk about the few future events that are left, and then we'll go to our usual roundtable. So let's get started with one of my clicker works. Yes!
Yay!
So actually, I should have changed the date on this here. So Jen, I'll let you take over here. Okay?
Sure, yep. So hi everyone. Some of you I know, and some of you may have not met me before. I'm Jen Stelzer, and I work at EnviroCenter, and EnviroCenter is EVCO's partner in the EV Experience project, which we're running with a few other stakeholders as well. And once every 3 months, I give a really detailed update to our stakeholders. And Raymond thought it would be a good idea to pop into your meeting. I haven't come in a long time, and give you guys a little update. It's been an incredible 3 months. And firstly, I just really want to thank the volunteers that have come out to make this. You're going to be bedazzled by the amount of engagement we've done in the past 3 months. So I'm going to let you go to the next screen. Sorry, I guess it's a little far away, Raymond. So in the past, basically 3 or 4 months, since about June, we've added 5 cars, EVs, ZEVs, to the Communauto fleet. And those cars, since about mid-June, have booked 540 trips on them. Now this just goes until the end of September, but we've done 22 community events. Those are mostly those test drive Tuesdays that many of you have come to, or some of the Saturday events. Raymond, one of my team members, have done 5 speaking opportunities, probably the biggest one being the Museum of Science and Technology and the SmartNet Alliance panel for Raymond. We've completed 915 test drives or test rides in the community, which is amazing. Our goal was 800, so we've already reached our goal. We have a few events still left to go. We have talked to just under 3,000 people. So these are meaningful conversations. These aren't like high fives as we're passing by. These are, you know, talking to people, which is just amazing. We have the EV Experience website, which really just came live in June. And to date, we've had 9,175 views on that. So that's an area we want to get up around 20,000 by the end of March of next year. The program itself has been featured in 5 earned media things, I guess, CBC Radio, CBC website, the Kemptville News, the Ottawa Valley News, and then some really prominent newsletter features for us, which has been probably the highlight being Hydro Ottawa. So Hydro Ottawa did a feature on the EV experience that goes out to 225,000 people, and of that, 95,000 people opened it and learned about our project. So that's a really exciting number for us. There's more numbers, but that's the highlight reel. I'll let you click to the next one. So everyone that did a test drive, we asked them to do a pre-test drive and a post-test drive. And this is really important because, you know, we want to know if we're actually making a difference in the sort of education and thoughts and are we breaking down some of these myths? And I think you will see from the big smile of our passenger there with Raymond on the right, that is basically the results right there. If I could just put the results in one picture, and you'll see why here in a sec. So Raymond, I'll let you click the screen over.
Yeah, I'll just mention something
Sure.
About the questions. Sorry. Well, I wanted to be close to the mic. Sorry. So the just mention something about the questions. So the reason we ask about the home energy questions is really because of a hidden agenda, if you will. So the intent there is to understand whether the people we're reaching are inside the environmental bubble or not. Because one of the goals we have is to try to reach outside of the environmental bubble as much as possible to the general public, right? So that's a way for us to do that, because generally speaking, if people have done the type of upgrade that we're talking about here, they are probably already aware of environmental issues and those changes for those reasons. So
well, we expect, like most people would have done at least one upgrade is what we expect, but if they've done 2 or more, then we would sort of think that those people are more inside our bubble.
Yeah. So it's a proxy for trying to understand whether they're inside the bubble. It's not a perfect measure, but it's our attempt
to give us an idea
of that, right? Yeah. So
exactly. So what we really found, sorry, my screen's a little wonky there. I think that happened when I sent it, sorry. Most of the people we talked to were 2-person households without children. Most were well-educated. Most owned a primary residence with off-street parking. Most owned a detached or semi-detached house. Most did not have a Communauto membership. And most had taken 1 or more measures to reduce household energy consumption or reduce their carbon impact. Probably, if you look at the little chart on the right there, you can see just about half the people we spoke with had a household income of $100,000 or more. And this is not a surprise, but it is a challenge for our project, and it is a challenge in general when we're trying to engage around electric vehicles, because as Raymond was saying, you know, we're inviting people to come to our event most of the time. And so they're already keen enough to want to learn about electric vehicles. We had a couple events that we didn't do test drives, but boy, did we reach a different audience and made an impact. So when we were at the Capital Fair for a few days, that was, you know, across from the Derby and across from the horse pulling thing, and we had all different broad range of people coming up to us and talking to us. Many people coming up and being like, tell me what this is all about, or I love my truck, I'm never gonna switch. And after a few minutes of hanging out with some of the folks from EVCO, you know, they listened a little, they got a little toe in the door. So that was pretty cool. And then some came out to some of our future events and actually went on test drives and stuff. So that was really cool. I do have your survey report, and I will update you on that probably tomorrow. I have to proofread it. So I'll give you the full meal deal. This is like nothing I've ever seen before, and I've been at this for about, I don't even know, 30 years or some crazy amount of time, 25 years I've been doing community outreach, and I have never seen a survey where literally 100% of the people surveyed were either satisfied or very satisfied. And we had one person who was neither there, here nor there, but they wrote a nice comment. So I think the words speak for themselves here. We just pulled these comments out of our other comments section, which is normally where we get the negative comments, for the record. And so we got these things, you know, thank you. This was a great opportunity to try more than one car option. Very appreciative. I need to get more informed before I take the plunge, but this was time well spent. And I think the last one, I mean, it's about Raymond, I think. Could be some guy named Richard also, but I'm pretty sure it's Raymond. I think it was Richard or Raymond driving the red Model Y. Fantastic job, fantastic guy, very well spoken, handles objections very well. And I think that's the superpower of the folks really finding that communication line. And that's why, you know, we're coming in without judgment. We're coming in without selling something. We're just there to listen, which is why we get those great reviews of the project. All right, next up. I think there's only three more.
Sorry, just a note on that. So, yes, I did some test drives, but if you look at the overall number, the high satisfaction rating, that really reflects everybody who did test drives.
Oh, yes.
Everybody who talked to the public, right? So this is, I've done some surveys in the past myself. I've been involved in substantial surveys, workplace surveys, and it's the same thing for me. I've never seen numbers this high, which is quite interesting. So
That makes me think maybe we screwed up.
well, yes and no, yes and no, because
But yeah,
you know, I think I mean, in some ways, we sort of pointed them to answer positively. You know?
yeah, no, there was like selection bias and all this stuff, but
Yeah, there's some bias, but I think overall, even when there is bias, every survey, by the way, if you're doing satisfaction surveys, there's a game that's always played by people who are rewarded based on that, right? Where I used to work, people were rewarded and could get fired if they had bad surveys. So there was a lot of gamesmanship involved with surveys. And I've never seen numbers this high, so it's.
I think the other big thing is we had a lot of people there, and so it was very hard to have a problem of any sort. There was somebody there that knew the answer to your question. There was somebody there to address a concern. Like, I don't think anyone showed up to anything we did and didn't talk to anybody. So I think there was that personal engagement piece too. Yeah, all right. 2 more to go.
Yeah, I think the low pressure environment too makes it really easy for people to ask questions and.
Yeah.
So,
this is very exciting too. This is why you do it. So how much do you know about EVs? And you can see before the test drive, there were people, 56% knew a few things, and 31% said they know a little, and 3% said they know a lot. And then after a test drive, we have 13% saying they know a lot, 43% saying they know a few things, 44% saying I know a little, and really everyone, those people that knew nothing or knew very little, have all been shifted over. So the education component really worked. We can really see people were learning on these test drives, which is A+. That's really, really exciting. And it led to the next slide, I think, because what they learned was, hey, maybe EVs aren't so bad. So you can see, you know, this neutral category on the left side, pre-test drives, how likely are you to consider an EV for your next test drive, is almost completely eliminated after having a test drive. People are far more likely to consider their EV for their next vehicle, and those neutral or somewhat, you know, likely people have all been really shifted over to somewhat likely or very likely. So that that's the whole purpose of this campaign, to be honest, is really to get those myths broken down and to make people consider an EV for their next vehicle. So it's working. Yay. I guess. There's just some cute pictures we took over the event. We did bring bikes to a couple of events. And we did some that were very urban. We did some suburban. We did some, you know, in the middle of the Capitol Fair where we didn't go anywhere. But yeah, so that was really great. I am happy to answer a couple more questions, but I do want to just tell you what's sort of upcoming in case you're wondering. It's not on here. So Raymond and a few of you, I think, are working with some dealerships to provide a little education for their staff. So that's in the works. We're having a Twitter chat on Thursday, November 24th with our stakeholders. It'll be like a live Ask an Expert thing. So I encourage you guys to join in the conversation. You're certainly welcome to speak up and become part of the conversation. We really want it to be a lively chat. And we're doing quite a lot of promotional, kind of like just general advertising for EVs, I'm going to say. So we have a promotional video going on for the Communauto EV car share to try to get people used to the idea of electric vehicles being in a car share. We're doing some spots with some influencers, and those are in the works right now. And we just finished analyzing the survey results. I'll be sharing that with Raymond and Mike early this week. And I'm working behind the scenes to build an Indigenous inclusion strategy for future programs as well. We also are going to be giving this concierge idea a try. So, thank you. That's new. Yay. Good job. It's magic. So I have gone ahead because these Communauto cars are very popular, and for us to get them, I just basically went online and booked a bunch of cars on random days. The way this concierge, the only way I can see it can work is if I can get about 4 or 5 of you kind of committed until maybe, you know, the first week of December to either use your own car or use a Communauto car, and we'll put it in the booking tool, and you can put times that suit you or times the Communauto cars available that work for you. And then you'd really literally go to the person's house or meet them somewhere that you've decided upon together, take them out as though you're doing it. You know, you can do a bit fulsome test drive, probably more than even the test drives that we've been doing at events. But yeah, so I've got cars booked. I'll send this all to Raymond, but I've got them booked on Tuesdays and Thursdays and one Sunday so far for about 7-hour blocks. So 3 in the afternoon till 10 p.m. on the 15th, the 17th, 22nd and 24th of November. And then all day on Sunday, November 20th, I have a car available as well. So those are just sitting there in my back pocket if we need them. We can add more as I'm able to add them. But as the opportunities came up, I grabbed them. So we had a few cars.
Yeah, so I'm just going to jump in just to explain to the membership. So the Communauto cars, or if you don't want to use your own personal vehicle to do test drives, the concierge test drives, you can use one of the Communauto cars. We do need a few volunteers who are willing to say, I'm ready, like I'm available every Tuesday from this time to this time to do test drives if somebody wants one, and then we can set you up in the booking system, and then you'll get an email if somebody wants to test drive with you. You can use your own car or you can use a Communauto car, it's up to you, but we have the cars available if you don't want to use your personal vehicle.
But you have to register.
But we have to register
In
in advance, and you have to, we'll set it all up. So if you're interested, talk to me or Raymond and we can hook you up.
Yeah.
But we do need like 5 volunteers for now, just to test it out and see how it works. And then we'll go from there. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so we do need to know if you use a Communauto car or your own vehicle. Because in the booking system, it will indicate which type of car is being used, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so you don't have to commit to every Tuesday or something. commit to when you can.
But just give us an idea.
Yeah, give us an idea and then we'll,
Into the flight.
and then we'll be
Yeah.
able to set that up.
And if
Okay.
if you're not already as in part of the Communauto EV experience, we have like a special account that we're using for this. It literally, it's so easy. You just send us the front and back of your driver's license and my team looks after everything else. So they run your driver's abstract. We pay for everything. We pay for your kilometers. We pay for your parking if you want to drive your own car. One of the cars I could only get was at the Gladstone location, so you may have to pay for some parking for your own vehicle. Just submit that to me or Raymond. You'll be reimbursed for your parking while you're off doing test drives in the other vehicle as well. The other one's at Bayview Yard, so you can park around there for free. There's no parking fee there.
The other thing to note from a security perspective and safety perspective, we take the license number of the person and it's verified that the license is valid. And what we'll ask you to do is when you do meet the person, that they show you their license and that it matches what we have, right, as the person who's actually registered.
Yeah, we
Just-
check them all behind the scenes with the MTO before you go in a car with anybody. Whether it's your own car or not, that's really important.
Yeah, but here in this case, the Enduro Center people won't be there, so it'll be your responsibility to check to make sure the license is valid or is the right one, just for your own safety. Because we don't want bad things to happen, right? So,
Yeah.
okay.
I think hopefully we'll have like a little separate meeting for the folks that are interested as we kind of work out a process together and make sure we make this in a way that works for everyone, because we want to build it with success. But it's, it's November tomorrow, so we can probably do this for about 6 weeks before the winter season starts, or the holiday season starts.
Yeah, so Jen, which time frame are we looking for? We're looking sometime in November up to the first week of December, is what you're saying?
I mean, like,
Just test it out.
I'm thinking November 15th. We can run them until about December 9th, I would guess.
Okay.
Yeah. I just can't book cars that late yet.
Yeah, so Sam is asking because he's got some flexibility in his schedule.
Oh, great.
And he's just asking when, but I guess the bottom line is if he gives you his availability, you'll put him in the schedule in the booking tool, and if there are bookings, then he does them, and if there's no bookings, then
Then there's nothing to
he
do.
does something
That's
else.
right. Yeah.
Jen, I'll be available from 5 a.m. to 7 a.m.
Be careful
some
what you
people
wish
do.
for. You might get the
Yeah.
early bird swim parents or something
I'm
out
up
there.
at 3:30. I have no problem.
You'll get all the pensioners
That's right.
after they're done
So,
breakfast.
ones that don't have to wake up early, they wake up early anyways, right?
Yeah, you gotta get the test drive to go to
They'll
breakfast.
finish their 5 a.m. breakfast and they'll come to you.
So,
So
any
I do have two more little things, and then I'm gonna let you get back to your meeting because I don't want to take too much time. So some of you have been volunteering with the EV Experience. We are having that little social for our EV Experience volunteers. Please reply to me if you haven't, because we're just trying to confirm the numbers for our, reservation or what have you. And thanks to those of you that already have. That's great. What's that, Raymond?
It's the 22nd of November, right?
That's right.
And
Yeah.
usually the ones who volunteered will have had an email from Jen or from me.
Yeah.
Indicating that they're invited.
So check your email.
Yeah. And the other very last thing I'm going to bring up at this meeting, because I don't get to talk to everyone very often, is that Leia, who has been working on this project for the whole entire time that we've been working on it, really, she has resigned from EnviroCenter and moved back to Toronto. So unfortunately, she won't be coming to the social. She did want me to tell you very much she really enjoyed working with all of you, and I just wanted to tell you personally because we're going to miss her, and I think those of you that got to know her a little bit are going to probably miss her around as well. So yeah, so there you have it. That's about it. Which is why I need to just look at that report before I get it off to you, Raymond. Yeah.
Okay, great. So thanks a lot, Jen.
Thank you
You're
so
welcome
much.
to stay. You're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. The next item on the agenda is Mitchell with the summary of the EMC conference. So is there any other questions for Jen before we go on to Mitchell? No? No? Okay, well, thanks again, Jen.
Thank
And
you
again,
so
you're-
much.
You're
I,
more than welcome to stick
I
around.
might stay on for a little while. I have to see if there's still trick-or-treaters at my door because my husband is not the trick-or-treater giver outer guy. And I think he's really, I think it's his first time handing out candy. So I know, really, right? Anyway, so I think I'll just sort of be here muted and pop in and out. All right.
Okay,
Thanks so
perfect.
much.
Thanks.
Bye.
Well, one thing I forgot to mention at the beginning, there was a CAA logo there, so again, I want to thank CAA for sponsoring us for the wrap on the trailer. So they paid for that this year, and apparently I'm not close enough to the camera. But I don't want to get too close because then you don't see.
Yeah, no, that's right then. You're good. Stop.
Okay, so this conference here, like Raymond had mentioned, was a topic or covered a variety of different topics. Some of the ones that I was most interested in are the ones I've included here, but there were more, and the full agenda is online on the website. So I'm going to only speak to the ones that I attended because I don't know what happened in the other ones, but I imagine they were also interesting if you cared about them. So things like medium and heavy duty vehicles, electrifying transit, a new funding announcement from the Canadian Infrastructure Bank, EV charging and parking, and public charging and ZVIP. So some new announcements around all of that. Next slide there, Raymond. And there we go. So there was a really good discussion with the Electric Mobility Council, or Electric Mobility Canada, sorry. They brought together a bunch of different stakeholders across the medium and heavy duty vehicle space. And then from there, they basically tried to figure out how medium and heavy duty vehicles will be electrified and at what pace. And then they outlined a couple of different interesting examples, starting with the fact that business case size, it's going to start with some of the smaller vehicles where there's more vehicle availability, I would say. Things like your transit vans, your delivery vehicles, vehicles like that specific nature. Once you start going into bigger vehicles, they typically have more specific use cases. And while there are vehicles in, say, the heavy tractor space, there isn't a heavy tractor that can suit, say, the extreme cases, which is what people buy tractors today for. So the Tesla Semi that's coming out is pretty close, I would say, but it's not yet at a full scale where they can deliver the sort of the needs of the businesses that are replacing vehicles. So they're going to start with those smaller vehicles first, dedicate some resources to that, and build up an even stronger business case going forward. And again, this is all kind of based on two aspects. There's not a lot of data that can sort of drive people to consider those heavier duty vehicles until people have used them for an extended period of time. And then there's also a limited amount of manufacturing that people can do for battery electric vehicles in general, and especially as it comes to sort of these heavier duty vehicles with special use cases. So I think the group there identified 2025 to 26 is sort of when there's going to be enough vehicles that are arriving in bulk to deliver on sort of the needs of different businesses and operators in those spaces. And then at some point, a zero emission vehicle mandate will be needed for all these vehicles as well, similar to what's been proposed by the federal government for sort of the light duty vehicles in 2035. There's a very, unless there's a ZEV mandate in place, sort of the manufacturing and the usage will happen in places like Europe, where they already have sort of a ZEV mandate for these vehicles, and they are delivering them pretty extensively there. And without a mandate here in North America, a lot of the vehicles that are being manufactured would be going to Europe instead. Raymond, do you have anything in addition to add to that, or do you want me to go to the next one?
Let's go to the next one, and actually I'll talk about heavy duty in a bit more detail after you're done, okay?
Sure. Yep, sounds good. There was one session that we did that was from the head of the TTC, who's also working with there's a group out of Toronto that's basically looking to electrify, or the most economical way to electrify the TTC's fleet. And then the one thing that I identified from that presentation was that while a lot of their work is basically aligning with what OC Transpo is doing in terms of scale, TTC is taking it differently, where they're electrifying all of their garages at the same time. And whereas OC Transpo only has 4 garages, TTC has 8 of them. And so the reason they're kind of electrifying all 8 at the same time is so that they can build up enough expertise at all of their different garages around how these vehicles work, how they charge, how their maintenance protocols work. And then also that they can have enough time to upgrade those facilities once those facilities need to be upgraded to support more electric buses. So they're working on some of the initial ones that don't need as extensive as of upgrades to start. And then as vehicle numbers increase and capacity for electricity increases as well at the same time, future upgrades to those facilities will be needed to support an even greater number of buses at each of those garages. The other thing they're talking about is using some money from the IESO to study energy management and energy storage, which is a big factor for heavy users like the TTC, or at least in the future when they are heavy rig users. Your demand charges at a facility, as an example, would make up a pretty significant part of their annual, or I guess in most cases monthly, electricity bills. And finding ways that they can reduce their peak demand, or stretching out when their vehicles are charging, or offsetting some of their electricity needs by using on-site storage. All of those different things are something that the TTC has identified in a funding stream with the IESO, and they're interested on collecting more data on how that's actually going and sharing it with a lot of different operators across Ontario, as well as other places in Canada and North America. And then the one thing that they've been able to say so far is that the battery storage at their sites has been used instead of, say, backup generators, which you would need a pretty massive generator to carry the amount of buses that the TTC is managing. But just using those battery storage modules can save 15% on their electricity costs, which, while it doesn't sound like a big number, when you start charging, in this case, it'd be nearly 1,000 buses. If it was to fully scale, it'd be a sizable percentage of their overall operating budget. So any money that you can save on your operating budget makes a better business case, which then leads to better buy-in to buy more of these vehicles, buy them sooner, or make upgrades at a better time that makes sense. They also shared sort of their different phases that they're looking for. And so that first phase is up until 2024. You can see sort of the numbers that they're looking to add at each of their garages. You don't get into the bigger numbers until phase 2. So that's where, say, 150 buses get added at a garage. And that goes from 2024 all the way until 2029. And then 2029 is when the bulk of the fleet arrives. So they're able to do that at that point as well.
So Mitchell, my understanding is that, just to be clear here, for phase 1, what they're trying to do is they're trying to put the number of buses they could put in existing facilities without having to do major upgrades to the grid to be able to support that, right? So that's why the numbers are relatively small. Mm-hmm. But they get bigger over time when they, and the other numbers, they need to do grid upgrades to be able to support those, right?
Correct, yeah. So I mean, in this case, they've been able to find ways to get 30 electric buses added to a site like Eglinton, which is their largest bus facility, I think. And then from there, they're just going to do 150 3 years from then, once they can actually source the materials that they need in order to upgrade that facility to accommodate the 150 buses they're adding. So those kind of planning decisions are all made in sort of 15-year cycles. So this is from 2020 until 2035. And so that's kind of the planning cycle that this whole program works on. And it's close to what the OC Transport organization has put forward, even though we don't necessarily have a plan all the way out to 2035 that is to this, I would say, detail. It is kind of in the works from OC Transport to try to make that a reality.
Yeah, and TTC, just for for information, right now they have about 60 electric buses on the roads, right? So they're progressing quite rapidly.
Yeah, that's basically spelling out what we just talked about. And I don't think there's anything here that's of interest. Jump to the CIB funding, which was an interesting announcement that they've laid out.
So the CIB is the Canada Infrastructure Bank.
Yes.
Okay, it's a bank that's been set up to finance things like electric buses that require lots of capital up front, but then there's operational savings after, right? So they provide the capital and avoid the operator having to find the capital, and then they get their money back through the savings over the years.
Yeah, so the CIB, Canadian Infrastructure Bank, identified charging infrastructure as an item that they found that it needs additional supports to make a reality. One of the main things tying a lot of third-party operators from putting more of these in place was the unknown around how much they're going to be used in future years. So what the CIB has decided to do is develop a payback system that charges interest rates according to how their stations are being utilized. So stations that are getting more users at an earlier time period would have their payback period be faster. So they would pay back their loan faster than, say, a station that's experiencing a lower amount of users. And because of that, their return on investment is going to be relatively the same for the people who install it. And as sort of that ZEV mandate comes into fruition, there's going to be more users, more potential users, I would say, to those stations. And so utilization will be much higher in future years because of the amount of vehicles that are being added. But this kind of payback system enables people to make large decisions around infrastructure that's going to be around for 10, 12, 15 years with a little bit more flexibility in how that loan period is paid back. The other thing that the CIB identified was the lack of chargers that go into underserved areas. So a lot of places are getting charging stations installed along highways, which is great for people who travel in between cities, but it's not so great for people who live in cities who don't necessarily have the same level of access to infrastructure that people with lots of money currently have. Could you go back to one slide there, Raymond? Yeah, and then the final point on that was that utilities can be involved in this as well. So planning out where there's available capacity in their grid to support charging station operations. And then they can work with those third parties to privately finance the installation of infrastructure that can support or that can be supported by the existing utility, rather than having the utility try to understand what upgrades are being done and where. And it gives it a little bit of an easier job planning out how their system needs to evolve to meet the growing electric vehicle demand. And then finally, we did a quick discussion was had around sort of what the future of EV charging and parking looks like. And the main thing that I got out of that was that we need to be installing more chargers where people actually live. A lot of the current funding is going towards places where people might visit, but only spend, say, an hour or two, and then may not come back for a week or 3 or 5. They may just come once a year kind of thing. So that revolves around sort of making comprehensive retrofits to buildings. And a lot of the people who are doing that work say that you could do a comprehensive retrofit for a building, and it would only kind of resolve to about $500 to $1,500 per stall to electrify the entire building. That CIB funding that came there before could also be used by third parties to generate a business case for installing charging stations at people's homes instead of at, say, private businesses, because you get the recurring fact that people always come back home and therefore can use that station and have a guaranteed customer that's always ready to use it. The other thing about installing at home is it's way easier to actually bill people because it's tied to your utility meter. You don't have to kind of create these different apps for different chargers and then get user bases for them and put money on a credit card. Everything just revolves around one user being billed by the utility who's already billing the customer anyways. And then the other final point on that was that a lot of the user cases and the user studies have shown that it's a lot easier to install these in low and medium rise buildings compared to high rises, mostly because there's only one level of parking. Once you go into 3 or 4 levels of parking, it becomes a challenge to get the electricity from where it typically is, which is on the first level, all the way down to the 3rd or 4th level of the parking garage. So all interesting things that I found from that discussion.
So Mitchell, another note about the CIB, the Infrastructure Bank, the purpose of involving them is to reduce the risk. And if you know anything about investing, the more risk there is in a project, the higher the interest rate has to be to justify the risk. So what they're doing is they're taking on the risk, which means that private actors could put money in there and risk a lot less. So it's possible to access money at much lower financing terms. So that means that there's more money coming into this space, right? So it won't just be the Infrastructure Bank financing these, it'll be other entities also that will be able to do it with a certainty that they will, that their risk will be mitigated, right?
Oh, I added something specific for Vancouver. Cool. So the guy from Vancouver, the guy who does all the charging stations like me in Vancouver, came and did a presentation about how the city is working with rentals building owners to get charging stations installed there. And basically what happens is the city identifies purpose-built rentals from sort of their existing property base. The city owns the charging infrastructure that they install. The landlord pays the electricity, which they already pay, and then the vehicle owners charge back by the city because the city owns the charging infrastructure. The other thing that Vancouver benefits from is the BC carbon credit market, which is used to support their basically business case for it. That carbon credit market is exclusive to BC at the moment, but the federal government has a carbon credit market that's coming out soon. I don't know exactly when, but I've heard it's going to come out by the start of next year. So that would be another thing that a lot of third-party operators would do, and they'd kind of collect all the revenue from all their stations and sell it back for credits. But the other thing, back to Vancouver, that they're doing, the project manager was basically saying that because these retrofits are done before tenants move in, it creates sort of the expectation that these charging stations and the charging amenity would be at the facility that people are renting from. And it becomes sort of known that it's something that people are expecting to be there rather than hoping that's there. And the one thing that came forward from that discussion as well is it's way easier to work with a single landlord of a rental compared to multiple owners in a condo. So that's why they're starting with the rental market, because it's way easier to, at least on the, say the commercial side or the administrative side, is you only have one person that has to be connected with instead of 250 people who live in a condo. And the what?
Sorry, Mitchell. So this is quite interesting. Jorge has just joined us here in the room. And what's happening at the federal level is that it's part of the Clean Fuel Standard. And commercial providers of charging services will be able to get credits. So it might be possible for countries like yours to get credits. Individual owners will not be able to get credits, but charging providers will be able to get credits. So maybe there's a way for you to tap into that to further
definitely
make things.
How can you like apply for the program without it's gonna be there?
Let's talk about that offline.
Okay.
I'm not too sure, but let's talk about it offline. See how we could get information to you.
Awesome.
Right, so I know that there's you know, like the Electrify Canada and vendors like that, providers like that will be able to access those credits. But they don't want to get into the business of dealing with individual.
Of course, nobody wants to do that job.
So yeah, it's too much trouble, right? Yeah. So cool. So you have one more slide.
I have one more slide. Okay, cool. Yeah, final thing, I guess, public charging and ZVIP. ZVIP's been around a long time, and they have enough data to figure out what the next stages of ZVIP are going to look like. They want to focus on groups that need it the most. So those would be garage orphans, vehicle for hire fleets, commercial fleets, and charging as a service on commercial property. So say a commercial property owner doesn't have the money up front to install infrastructure, that charging as a service works where you pay a monthly fee instead of paying it all up front. They manage it and operate it and collect revenue for you on your behalf. So those 4 categories were identified as groups that should be targeted for additional infrastructure.
So what's interesting about that is that it doesn't cover condo owners, right? It doesn't cover rental properties, MERS, essentially are not in there, right? Okay, so MERS that have parking, so MERS that are garage orphans, it's a different story. But MERS that have parking are not covered in these areas, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be some overlap, I'd say, with the vehicle for hire fleets, unless that's like a taxi operator. Like I'm thinking like Uber and Lyft, like all of their vehicle for hire, like they're technically fall under vehicle for hire, but they're all private owned vehicles. So I don't know how that's going to work, but I'm sure somebody smart at NRCan's going to figure it out.
Yeah, so the other thing to note here is we're talking about public charging, right? So in terms of public charging, they think these are the only category of people who need public charging, which I believe is true, except for people who are traveling, right? Otherwise, people should be able to charge at home, right? They should have a.
Yeah, I mean, like there's going to be a better business case for people who are traveling because I mean, like the on-routes are a perfect example where you already have, you already basically capture 95% of people who are traveling to stop there. So you'll also capture 90 to 95% of, say, electric vehicle drivers that are driving those corridors as well. So it's a lot harder for, say, a Canadian Tire that's 10 kilometers away from the highway to attract the same level of users as what a on route could capture. The other thing that ZVIP was identifying was there are in their discussions with municipalities, there's an opportunity for things like schools, libraries, and community centers to alleviate that lack of on-street charging. I think that kind of relates more to Toronto, where there's a lot more garage orphans than Ottawa has. So I mean, I think I could definitely see it from a like school parking lots are empty past 5 p.m. So perfect opportunity for those who don't have charging at home to like go to a school and or a library, charge up there.
Yeah, but again, if it's far from your home, it's not practical, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say the schools and libraries are probably okay. Like if you say you're going to drop your kid off at school in the morning, or if you're like a library after school activities, like that could make sense for me. Community centers aren't typically as centrally located as your schools and libraries are, though, I think, at least. Unless Toronto's totally different than Ottawa.
Hey, Mitchell.
Yeah.
Would hockey rinks be on there?
Yes, but those would
Follow-up
likely
question?
be.
Follow-up question. Are you guys gonna actually mark them like for EV charging only, the parking spots, or?
In Blackburn in particular.
Yes.
Yeah, it's on my list. I got the signs. I do have to get the facility to install them. So
Like top of your list?
it's on my list of things that need to get done by the end of this year.
So
So
Mitchell,
End of this year, whoa,
Mitchell,
end of this month.
I have access to a pounder. We could, Sam and I.
Oh, go put it up if you give me the sign.
I will.
I sign on eBay.
Well, no, it has to be approved and all that. It has to be,
Anyway.
the goal has to be.
Anyways,
It's part of the reason why it's taking so
Wear a
long.
high vis vest, get a sign that looks legit, and nobody's gonna ask any questions.
Exactly, yeah. So actually, your last point is quite interesting there, Mitchell, about the level 3 charging station. So what they found is that drivers will spend an additional $14 on average in services around where they're charging, right? So this points to the fact that, you know, if you're running a Harvey's like the gentleman on baseline there, baseline Maryvale, that this is an opportunity for him to generate extra revenue, right?
we did, I just did a long trip and we did the detours for the like the Canadian Tires for Electrify Canada, just because it's faster charging.
Yeah.
But and at the same time, we were looking and that we were disappointed at one of them. There was absolutely nothing around except for the Canadian Tire and Home Depot. But all the other charge station that we did stop, we walked and got snacks, washroom break, and whatever. So we did, and that's 3 of us that were in the car.
Yeah.
We spend money, probably $10 each every time we stop.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, cool. You don't just pour the washroom. You get a coffee,
Yeah,
you get a meal, you do all sorts of stuff, right? So,
that's it.
okay, so any questions for Mitchell? Any other comments, Mitchell?
I'm emailing John Hamilton right now.
Sorry?
I'm emailing the guy at Blackburn to see if he can go pick up some signs and install them.
Good job.
Good luck
Yes.
with that. It usually takes about a year to get him to do something.
Oh, well,
Maybe you have an
will-
inside scoop on that.
Mitchell, tell him Sam and I will be there. I can't be there past Thursday.
I'll be there any day. You just tell me.
I will keep you in the loop if everything goes well, and I will see what happens.
Thanks, Mitchell.
Thanks, Mitchell.
I'll try.
Thanks a lot, Mitchell. Actually, I thought I saw Lynn's car on Thursday night. Was that your car parked there charging, Lynn?
No, it's not. There's like a couple of dozen Teslas in the neighborhood now. So what happens is a lot of people who go to the arena will actually plug in and charge there.
Okay, cool.
I use it every Thursday just to make sure it stays there.
When it's
Yeah.
available, when it's
Yeah.
not iced, right? You use
Yeah,
it.
I got iced like 4 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a big,
Double ice too.
so it's a big
Yeah.
problem in that location, but it's great to see that some people are using it. So I've been there several times when I've seen people, when it was iced, I've seen people use it, so. Okay, so I'll talk briefly about the medium and heavy duty vehicle working group and some of the things they said. Now, one of the things that Mitchell didn't mention is that we had the Minister of the Environment, Stephen Guilbeault, there. And he was peppered with questions about a ZEV mandate in particular. And he assured us we're gonna have a ZEV mandate. Just
Just
need,
like how they gave us proportional representation.
they just, they just need to figure out the details, and I'm supposed to be on Parliament Hill tomorrow with an EMC meeting. And that'll be my message. When are we gonna get the ZEV mandate, right? This is crazy.
No, let me phrase it. We're gonna have the ZEV mandate in January, right?
Is that about the vehicles and are we still on?
ZEV mandate is a zero emission vehicle mandate. So what that would mean is that the manufacturers would have to sell a certain percentage of their vehicles.
How's they settled it?
No, it's not in place yet in Canada.
2035.
It is in place, well, 2035 is banning the sale of gas and diesel cars. Okay, but between now and then, we need to get to 100, right? So we need to have interim targets and all that. But one of the things they're gonna do is they're gonna have this ZEV mandate where if manufacturers don't sell a certain percentage of their vehicles, whatever that may be for that year, that are zero emission, they'll have to pay a fine or buy a credit from some other manufacturer. And actually, if you look in the US right now, Tesla makes a lot of money selling credits to other manufacturers that don't have, they don't sell enough zero emission vehicles in different, not just in the States, there's other places in the world where they have to.
Monday doesn't have that problem.
Sorry?
Monday doesn't have that.
No, actually, they probably sell their credits. They probably have excess credits that they sell also.
And Ford right now with
Right?
the, like,
So.
and a Mach-E.
Yeah, but they don't have, the numbers are
Anyway,
big enough,
that's-
anyways. So, Mitchell's already mentioned that we need a ZEV mandate for medium and heavy duty vehicles also, right? So the federal government has said there will be a ZEV mandate for medium and heavy duty vehicles, except it's gonna be 5 years later, I believe. So I think 2040 is the limit for selling, okay? For selling gas and diesel. What I think is gonna happen, and I've mentioned this many times, I'm sure many of you remember, I believe that medium and heavy duty is actually gonna go faster than light duty. Because people, that have medium and heavy duty vehicles, it's usually fleets, they do the math, they know they're gonna save a shitload of money. So they're gonna wanna move to electrified transport as soon as possible, okay? So that being said, what the, so the EMC has got this medium and heavy duty working group, and they're trying to analyze what is what in this space and what needs to be the focus for the government in particular in this space, right? And there's really 4 different, what do they call them again? Tiers? No, they call them
Trees.
pillars. Yeah, the trees in there, but they call them pillars. And one of them is the vehicles, then infrastructure, fleet planning, and operation. I'm going to a bit of details. I won't go in very much details about what is said in there. If you want to look at the presentation after and have questions, go right ahead. Feel free to ask questions. So I know it's a bit of an eye chart, but the point here is, when it comes to the vehicles, the biggest challenge right now, and that's why it's in red, is that last one there. It's vehicle supply, right? So if you're trying to buy a medium or heavy duty vehicle, even a light duty vehicle, they're hard to get, right? So that's the biggest challenge we have right now. But there's other challenges that are upcoming that are important too, like mineral supply, battery supply chain, and recycling. Okay, so they're essentially talking about what the current state is for each of these and what the ideal state should be so that the government could steer policy in that direction. Pillar 2 is the infrastructure. So this is the charging infrastructure essentially, right? And you can see the two things that are important there is the charger supply chain is a significant issue. So if you've been involved in charger installations, Mitchell, you know that the wait time to get a charger is very long. There's also other things that take a long time, and I don't know if it's probably in grid connection really. It takes a long time to get transformers and to get grid upgrades done and all that, right? So that's a real problem. There's a lot of regulatory licensing and all that kind of stuff that makes it difficult to connect to the grid, okay? So they have a bunch of, or they're working on policy proposals to overcome those problems, okay? So pillar 3 is planning. So this planning is the planning and the larger scale. So planning of your fleet, not planning of the operation. So when do I buy a vehicle and this kind of stuff, right? The biggest issue right now is the business case, mostly because of the larger upfront capital expenditures you need for the charging infrastructure and for the vehicles that are still more expensive than gas and diesel at this point, okay? So again, they are providing some recommendations, and the federal government actually has responded already to some of this stuff. So they're providing some subsidies for medium and heavy duty vehicles as well as light duty vehicles, right? Pillar 4 is operations. So there, the biggest issue is interoperability, and I'd say the real reason why this is a big issue is that there is not yet a standard that's been settled on in terms of charging for heavy duty vehicles. Okay, it's probably going to use Shadow, no, not Shadow, sorry, CCS combo, in some shape or form. But the standards haven't been settled on yet. Okay, so that's a bit of an issue. I think one of the things the federal government should do in Canada, and they've actually they're doing this in the States, in California in particular. I think the federal government should seed a network of chargers for medium and heavy duty vehicles, so that there's at least a minimum amount of charging available for the fleets that do want to adopt sooner, so that they could try this stuff and make it happen. Okay. So anyway, so they're working really hard at this and trying to figure out how do we make this happen faster. So I'm very happy that they're doing this because they're providing good recommendations to the government, and this group EMC has the ear of the government. And again, tomorrow night I'm supposed to be on the Hill at a little reception with these guys to talk to various government representatives. So it should be interesting to see what comes out of that. Any questions on that? No? Okay, so our next is Mike. I need another.
It's me. It's the news. Hopefully I'm in the frame and lit.
Did you want to start?
All right, so we'll start with the news. Alexander Dennis has added 2 new buses to its lineup that are electric. This is important because Alexander Dennis is the company that makes the double-decker buses for both the UK, the famous London buses, but also for OC Transpo. So now they have electrified their double-decker bus with the help of BYD. So they now have an electric double-decker, which is the Enviro 200 EV. So we have the Enviro 200 something or other, which is the name of the double-decker. Now there's the EV version. And they have the 400 as well. Actually, it's already the 200 is a small bus. The 400 is the one we have. It's the double-decker. Anyway, now there's an option for OC Transpo to electrify the double-deckers, which is awesome. Next.
It worked for me.
Yeah. Microsoft hates me.
Press the arrow.
There we go. Okay. Calgary, green lights e-bus adoption. So like Ottawa, Calgary is moving forward with electric buses. They've secured money from the CIB, Canadian Infrastructure Bank, to help fund the capital expenditure. They're going to spend $400 million, of which about half of that almost is from the loan from the CIB. They're buying 259 electric buses. Their fleet is 750. So they are making a big chunk of that electric, and their view is to do that for the rest of the fleet. They have a bunch of natural gas buses right now that they just bought, so they will be electrifying those later, but they're working on it. So
it's very interesting that a city, the capital of the
capital of the oil patch, right, is going electric. So and getting rid of CNG and diesel, so that's good. Volkswagen will only produce electric cars in Europe from 2033. So the original plan was to start only electric production in 2035. They have now bumped it up 2 years. They're also moving away from building a single car per factory. They sort of do this old school production style where like one of the factories builds only the Golf, right? And so they're moving away from that and doing a modular electric platform, MEB, that's their electric platform. So it'll be a platform-based thing, which will make it easier to make multiple models in the same factory, which is more efficient. And hopefully their goal is to use that efficiency to drop the prices, to come out with a 25,000 euro EV, which would be good because cheaper is better. And sticking with Volkswagen, the Canadian ID4s are now in production in America, Chattanooga, Tennessee. The way to tell them apart, if you're not wise to this, is the rear quarter panel on the American built ones has a crease, whereas the European built ones are smooth, like a bum. So if it has a crease, it's American, or built in the US. America.
Or you look at the VIN.
Or you look at the VIN, but that's really creepy.
No,
And a lot less parking. So I wouldn't, don't look at the VIN. That's just weird. The first units are expected to arrive in Canada by the end of the year. So if you're waiting for an 94, maybe soon. They've also come out with a slightly more affordable option at $43,000, which is about $1,000 less than the previous entry-level version. They have 2 battery packs now, so there's the 62 kilowatt hour and the 82 kilowatt hour. There's some minor cosmetic changes, as I mentioned, and now that this factory is online and mass producing ID4s, hopefully supply will improve because Volkswagen's been having issues with production in Germany. They lost a literal boatload of them a few months ago in the Atlantic near the Azores, where a ship sank full of cars. And then the war in Ukraine that the Russians started interrupted their supply chain of wiring harnesses. So that was slowing down production as well. So ID4s have been a little short supply. You don't see them around very much. That will change very soon now. All right, so Toyota is on the opposite end of the Volkswagen spectrum. They're suspending EV development while they ponder future EV development. So apparently they've decided that they're going to sort of pump the brakes while they figure out this whole EV thing. Meanwhile, the rest of the industry is already moving well ahead in that department. They announced last year in December, they announced plans to make 30 EVs, like 30 models by 2030. That looks like it's now on ice. Pun intended.
Yeah.
Pun intended, I'm that smart. So there's a report from within the group. I think Reuters came out with it, but anyway. There's a group inside Toyota that are calling the Skunk Works because nobody's original. And they're tasked with developing new EV plans to help improve or replace the current platform that they're using. The issue with the ETNGA platform, which is what the BZ4X is based on, is that it was optimized to be produced alongside gas cars and not optimized to be a high volume EV platform. And so now they're thinking maybe we should do a Volkswagen and Hyundai and make an EV platform that's optimized to be an EV platform.
Like actually every other manufacturer.
Like literally every other manufacturer. Also, they probably want to make sure the wheels don't fall off because that's kind of another issue with the TNG right now is the wheels fall off. And apparently automotive engineers at Toyota forgot how to make that not happen. So anyway, if you're waiting for an electric Toyota, sorry, just don't hold your breath. And also the next slide sort of nails this one home, brings it home. They're doubling down on hybrids and hydrogen. So their unapologetic CEO wants Toyota, and this was delicious because he wants Toyota to be the departmental store of powertrains because everyone knows how popular department stores are in the 21st century and how well Sears and the Bay and Eaton's are doing. Because Toyota wants to be a department store. So good luck with that, Toyota. They also have plans on building a hydrogen combustion engine, which I should point out creates NO2 emissions, NOx emissions, just like a diesel because combustion. So, yeah.
They claim it cleans the air.
Well, it cleans the air by polluting.
Hyundai
Yeah.
claims clean
Yeah.
air.
So anyway, and this is their prototype Jeep type thing. This is the,
FJ Cruiser.
yeah, no, this is the nice vehicle.
The cruiser.
Yeah, this is the FJ. I don't know what it's ugly and terrible. Anyway, enough about Toyota. Let's talk about Mercedes, which makes a G-Wagon. There we go. So Mercedes has announced the electric G-Wagon. So if you are not familiar with the G-Wagon, it is the baller car that all the rappers like to drive. Arnold has one and he converted it to electric with the company out in like Croatia or whatever that does that. But now Mercedes is going to make an OEM electric version. The G-Wagon always looks the same. It's looked like that since the 1970s. It's a military vehicle. Canadian forces actually use the G-Wagon as well. It's our Jeep. So anyway, Mercedes is making an electric version coming out in 2025. Well, it'll be a 2025 model year, probably coming out in 2024. That's the show car they showed off. It should look pretty similar to what that picture shows. More options will be forthcoming, but we do know that there will be 2 battery options, although this will not be cheap. The G-Wagon is always like $100,000 car. So.
Keep
Yeah.
going.
And more, right? So this is not going to be an affordable Jeep type car. This will be for Saudi princes that want to go EV. So Electrify Canada, Electrify America has opened its first megawatt level battery storage backed charging station. So it's now online. Basically, this station can provide a megawatt of charging, not in an individual charging stall, but like as a whole facility. So each charger at the facility has a minimum of 150 kilowatts, just like the stations here, except they have a whole bunch of them. But with that much demand, grid ties can be an issue. So what they've done is they've hooked up what they're calling BESS, a battery energy storage solution, which is co-located at the facility, which constantly charges off the grid and then powers the chargers as people, request energy. So it can store 1.5 megawatts or 3 megawatt hours.
So
And-
so it could supply 1.5.
It can supply 1.5 megawatts and it stores 3 megawatt hours, yes. And it has a 66 kilowatt solar canopy, just because you can. So they will be rolling this model out more across Canada and the US. So hopefully we start seeing these soon in Canada, which, it looks really awesome. This one is in California. It's Baker, California. So if you're in Baker, California for any reason, go check it out. It looks really
So
cool.
it's 2 hours, basically.
2 hours of battery.
storage.
Yes, but it's still tied to the grid, right? So that's the supplement.
Yeah,
grid
the
power.
battery acts like a capacitor, basically.
Yeah.
So keeping with the charging networks, sorry, I have COVID still. I'm negative. Petrochem wants some feedback about its electric highway. So 3 years ago, they launched a charging network, from coast to coast. They have a funny idea of what Trans-Canada means. It apparently means going through Toronto, and not actually on the Trans-Canada, which is Highway 17, but whatever. So there are currently 50 charging locations, but if you want to go west, you have to go to Toronto to use them and then up, which is annoying. So the feedback I left them on their website, you can go, feel free to do the same, is the Trans-Canada is actually Highway 17, so there are no charges between Ottawa and North Bay, basically. So they need to fix that. So anyway, so that's some of the feedback.
So the initial network that they deployed a few years back, I talked to some of the Canada guys. They wanted to understand the business model and all that.
Yeah.
And one of the things that's been a real problem with them is reliability of charge.
Yes, and that's the other thing they're looking at. So right now, reliability is a nightmare. They are very unreliable. This is my buddy Victor when we went on our epic 1,000-kilometer road trip, and we had no issues. Apparently we lucked out. But yeah, reliability is a problem, so they're going to focus on reliability,
Yeah.
and they want to also enhance communication with EV drivers.
Yeah. But they're talking about massively increasing their
Yeah,
footprint,
and
so-
they have to apologize for their
Yes.
lack of,
But they're also looking for feedback, so
Yeah.
feel free to go on their website and
Yeah.
give them feedback and tell them that they need to have chargers north of Pembroke.
Yeah.
Just saying. Because the real Trans-Canada goes through
right
Pembroke.
now, they have the same chargers as, like
Electrify
Canada,
Canada,
the
terrible.
BCs.
Yeah.
And they're.
ABBs, right, they're always
they're
looking.
ABB, and they're both looking at, a distributor.
So my understanding is it Electrify Canada, if a charger goes down, they don't fix it, they replace it.
Yes, that's what they're doing.
Because they've been so bad, they just replace them.
Yeah, well, that's what they're doing now. They have their own new chargers they built in-house.
Yes, we're getting 4 new chargers.
Hope so. Yeah, because ABB, according to Bjorn, Tesla Bjorn, it's always be broken.
Yeah,
That's what it means.
it is.
Yeah, it's true. Next slide. There we go. So Hyundai Motor Group is coining a new term for their factory. It's called Meta Plant. Nothing to do with
Oh, no.
Facebook. So don't worry, it's not a virtual reality nonsense thing that nobody's gonna use. It's a factory in Georgia. They've already started construction, like, as of this week. They've broken ground. It's a $5.5 billion investment in Bryan County, Georgia. They announced it back in May, and originally they were supposed to start construction like next year. They've now bumped that up, so they plan to be up and running by Q3 2024, and then like full production by the first half of 2025, which is very impressive. They want to make 500,000 vehicles, and they're talking about maybe more at the facility, and they're all electric. The reason they're calling it a meta plant is because it'll have a gigafactory for batteries, and then also a separate factory to make EVs, which is basically what Tesla calls a gigafactory, but whatever. They need to do their own thing. So it'll produce electric cars for Hyundai, Kia, and Genesis brands. So your Ioniq 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 will probably come from Georgia.
And the Kias and the.
And the Kia EV6, 7, and 8s and whatever, and the Genesis GVs, whatever's. So anyway, that's what it looks like in the computer render. They are building it now.
Cool.
So very cool. Okay, so EVs have reached 18% market share in California. So they announced this month that 80% of new car sales were electric, and that compares with 6% for the rest of the US. Tesla makes up 2/3 of EV sales in the US, of course. So of the 560 or 576,000, 500,000 EVs sold in the US this year so far, a quarter of them, 250,000, so half of them were made in or were sold in California. And with growth, of course, is expected to continue, so that number will be bigger next year. 20% already, almost. Not bad.
That's similar, it's very similar to what BC.
Yeah.
And the rest of Canada have, right? So-
Yeah, we're getting there. All right, so we're all familiar with Toyota's self-charging hybrid. And now we need to all become familiar with Nissan's e-Power. There's some quotes on the screen that I'm sure you can read. But basically, it's a gas car that Nissan is claiming will give you all the benefits of an EV. But with the efficiency of a 10-year-old RAV4 hybrid. Actually, it's worse than that. So it uses more fuel per 100 than a RAV4 hybrid from 10 years ago. But it's a brand new.
But it's not plug-in, right?
No, they don't want to have the annoyance of having to plug in. So they're leveraging their experience with the Nissan Leaf. That they perfected in the Leaf. So, because yeah, the Leaf is perfect as an EV.
So it's basically a hybrid.
It's not a hybrid, it's worse than a hybrid.
It's a gas.
It's a gas car.
It's a gas
So-
car. It's a generator, a
Well,
gas
I-
generator.
So, okay, so the problem is, here's the problem. So this is, one of the problems is that depending on which Nissan website you go to, they have a different schematic for how e-power works. Sometimes they connect the power generator to the battery, and sometimes they connect it to the inverter, like in here. The way it probably works is as depicted here in this slide, which is the engine powers the generator, which then powers the inverter, which then either runs the motor or charges the battery. But if you have taken any high school physics at all, you would know that at every time you change the form of energy, there are losses involved, right? So you take your very inefficient, mostly makes heat gas engine to make electricity, there's a loss. And then you take that electricity and you put it through an inverter and there's another loss. And then you run it through the inverter into the battery and then there's a loss there. And then you run it from the battery through the inverter again, another loss, and then into the motor, and then there's another. So there's losses all the way along the chain, which is idiotic.
It's similar to the i3, the little
Mm,
BMW.
It's a range extender.
Yeah,
It's like
like
a
a-
range extender.
It's like a range extender.
They're Rex on the.
It's
i3.
similar to that,
Yes.
but it's worse. So this is objectively a bad thing, but Nissan is selling it like, if you find EVs to be a hassle because taking 10 seconds to plug in a car is a hassle. You can buy this and just put gas in it like a normal car and then have all the benefits of an EV, which is not true. It's a lie. They're basically.
Is this actually going into production? Because I
Yes.
saw this announced a couple of years ago and it seemed to just
Yeah, no,
be,
It's in production. It's their new powertrain. Yeah, it's going into the Qashqai or whatever. And yeah,
The
there's
thing
questions. moving here.
I kind of had the opportunity to lift up and see under a Highlander, Toyota
Mhm.
Highlander, and they have the two electric motors, like one in the
Yes,
back,
one of the,
front.
yeah, that's different. So with a normal hybrid or a plug-in hybrid,
Mhm.
right? That's the one, the conventional hybrid on the right. That is actually more efficient than the e-power because the engine is capable of running the wheels directly if needed.
The e-power is probably more.
No, it's not. Physics says no. I've got a whole video I can send you about it, that from an automotive engineer who explains why e-power is stupid. But a conventional hybrid is actually a bit more efficient because you skip a few losses because you're not converting it so many times. You just like, they use the gas engine to run the wheels with the clutch. So it's-
What about locomotives? They work on.
Locomotives are like this, but that's because locomotives, it's not practical to have a physical drivetrain for a locomotive. So they have to use this system, and this is actually the most efficient way to do it. Because if you don't know, a locomotive each wheel set, each bogie has electric motors on it. And then the big diesel engine actually just makes electricity and runs the wheels. It would be impractical. So most locomotives have at least 8 sets of wheels. And running drivetrains to each of those sets that can turn and stuff would be ridiculous and mechanically would be a nightmare to do. So what they do instead is they have electric motors and they just run wires, like high voltage wires, and they run them like, it's electric train. And that's a practical thing that any locomotive does because they need that many motors for the traction. The steel on steel is slippery and whatever. So that's a thing. And that works for that, but for a car, it's not useful, it's not helpful. It just creates complexity and losses.
Whatever it is, it still uses gas.
It's still using gas.
It's still using gas.
You cannot add energy apart from gas
It cannot be independent from gas.
No.
At any time.
at any time. No, it doesn't. No.
So I would like to see your video that explains.
Sure, I'll send it to you.
Because if you're using an Atkinson cycle motor there.
Yeah, they
you
are.
Probably get better efficiency.
The other issue with this design is that poor little battery
Yeah.
is abused because it's a tiny little, it's like 1.5 kilowatts,
1.5
kilowatt hours. It's a tiny little battery. And so basically what you're doing is you're hammering that battery for everything it's worth all the time. It doesn't even have enough power to run the motor at full speed, so you need the gas motor and generator to run to get max power. So you are abusing the snot out of the poor little battery, which is not good for the lawn. Anyway,
Yeah.
just so you know, e-power exists. It's a thing people will be telling you. It's the next best thing to EVs. It is not.
I'll be curious to see it though.
And we can share the link to John Dogan Auto Expert video where he breaks it down and explains exactly why it's stupid and why locomotives are this, but that's smart for them. Yeah, anyway, there's that. And then the next slide, we're into the Tesla corner. So Tesla Semi, we were talking about big trucks. December 1st is the day that Pepsi gets its trucks. So the truck has a range of 805 kilometers, which is not bad, although apparently small for a big rig like that. They have 100 trucks on order at Pepsi. It's unclear how many they will be getting, but they'll be, under 20 kind of thing, probably. They already have a mega charger installed at PepsiCo in Modesto, California. Most of these trucks are actually going to be used in California, so we probably won't see them here. But they are starting to roll out.
They're
Next one.
not Pepsi necessarily.
Tesla's using them.
Tesla, yeah.
Yeah, so Tesla's been using them for about a year or two. They've been shuttling stuff back and forth between Giga, Nevada and Fremont. So they've been sort of dog fooding and testing these trucks. But now Pepsi's the first customer to get their truck. So that'll be cool. So that's happening. All right, and so this picture might be the final design for the Cybertruck, which was accidentally revealed by a company that it's called Unplugged Performance. They make aftermarket stuff for Teslas, and they were showing off their new rims, and then some people noticed that, hey, wait a minute, the windshield wipers and the wing mirrors don't look the same as what was shown off at the Cyber Rodeo a few months ago. And that's because these look more practical and possibly are the final version. So it remains to be seen, but if you've got your Cybertruck on order, you may want to check out the tweets from Unplugged Performance. They tweeted out a picture of these rims, but also of the truck that they're on. And it seems unlikely that they would have, rendered their own truck, because it's like the design changes are very minor, and it's like, why would they bother? So it seems like this is a thing Tesla sent them for, aftermarket design purposes, and then they sort of accidentally put it out in the public. So there you go. Accidentally on purpose.
You're able to text to see their names?
No.
No.
I will not. One more slide, come on. There we go. So Tesla has issued a rare physical recall for, okay, so it's a bit misleading. It's not all 24,000 Model 3s built between 2017 and 2022. It's only ones that went in for servicing and had somebody fuss around with the seatbelts. Apparently they have to disconnect the seatbelts for various reasons, for various components that need to be changed out, not necessarily related to seatbelts. So if you've had your car in, you might get an email from Tesla saying that your car has been affected by this. It's a service issue, not a manufacturing issue. It's something about when they reassembled the car, they didn't do the seatbelt thing perfectly. So keep an eye on your email for that if you have a Tesla Model 3 from those years. And I think that's it. Back to Raymond.
By the way, so there was a comment earlier about, actually, I think Mitchell said that about trucks, heavy duty trucks, and whether they're practical or not right now, things like Tesla Semi. So for those of you who don't know this, in the US, my understanding is this applies to the whole of the US. Truck drivers have to stop for half an hour every 5 hours. So that gives them time to charge, right? So they should be able to practically use Tesla semis for very long distances. So, and one of the things I found out too is the zero emission vehicles in the US have an exemption, so they could weigh up to 82,000 pounds.
Yep.
Instead of the 80,000 pounds that everybody else has to. So that helps with the weight of the battery. So, anyways, past events and future events. So I wonder how that picture made it there.
I didn't do it.
That's Mitchell's new car. So very, very nice car, Mitchell. We got to see it in, where were we when we saw it?
I don't know, I had COVID.
Our car.
No, it wasn't.
We had a prior.
The Carson Coffee. Oh,
Yeah, but it was an Empire. Was an Empire. Well, maybe last weekend he had. it.
Oh, yeah, no, this weekend came too,
But
but
he got it right before the one in Empire, so, and that would be an Empire. I was there, so I wasn't at the one in Barhaven. So anyways, yeah, so we had 4 cars and coffees. We did have the Science and Tech Museum event on October 1st, so we did not have a cars and coffee that day, but so other past events, so again, October 1st, we had the event at the Canada Science and Technology Museum. That's what that is not what the picture is. So we had some test drives outside, we had a booth inside, and we did quite a few test drives, so it was a very good event. Actually, it seemed like, from what I could tell, talking to people inside, because I was in the booth inside, there were more people who came to see us than people who came to the museum that day. It wasn't a great day for the museum, because it was nice, beautiful, warm, sunny day. So people probably went outside instead of going to the museum. So there weren't very many people at the museum, but there were quite a few people that did test drives and test rides. So that was great. So October 8th, Jen alluded to this a bit earlier. So I did a presentation at Tony Graham to their staff, actually, in this case. And I'm working on presenting that to the Myers group of dealers. So we'll see how that turns out. The presentation was really about the future and how fast EVs are likely to come to market and dominate the market and all that, and how how Tony Graham, there we know this, have an issue with their supplier not following the trend. So anyways, October 12th, we had a green drinks. That's a new format at the Tenants Pump. It's going to be once a month, every second Wednesday. So Jorge was there. I was there. I don't know, Sam.
I just did the pre-drinks.
He came we had a meeting before, but we had a few people there, so it was a pretty good event. But haven't seen anything for the next month yet, but we should have one on a night. I won't be here for that, but anyways. So October 15th, I was on Lake Radio in Perth. Virtually though, I was doing it from Zoom, but there's a show there called All About the House. And they were asking a bunch of questions that I pre-fed them on EVs and owning an EV and all that. So it was an interesting experience. It worked out quite well. And these you start doing these, and you think this is an hour, and actually there were like 4 10-minute segments in there, and you think this is a long time, right? But it flies by like you wouldn't believe. So it feels like 5 minutes, but it's an hour. So anyways. October 20th, Kempville GM invited me to, they had an EV event there, which was kind of an interesting event, but anyways, so I had a table there where I could talk to people about EVs. I thought I would have to do, or I would do a formal presentation. I did not. We were in the showroom, and it's kind of funny because it's tire season, right? So there's piles of tires everywhere in the showroom, right? Because they make money selling tires, right? So anyways, there were a few other tables around, and so I got to talk to quite a few people there about EVs and all that, so fun stuff. October 25th was the first corporate event we did at the Canada Research Park, and that's the picture there that we have. That's in front of 555 Leggett. So not super well-attended event. I'm a bit disappointed by the number of test drives we had. We didn't have that many. We also had a virtual session inside that people could attend. Anybody from KRP properties could attend. KRP properties are all in the Canada area, right? So anybody in any KRP property could have come to do a test drive with us, but we didn't get very many. So unfortunately, it didn't work out so well. We have 2 others coming up, and we'll talk about that in the next slides. We did a Zoom presentation for the Ottawa Hospital. So the virtual presentation portion that we did at KRP the same day as the event, we did in advance at the Ottawa Hospital. So I did that on October 27th. So that's it for, I think that's it. I don't think I missed anything. So upcoming events, this is where things get a bit more interesting. So next meeting, same place, same time, November 28th. And actually, just so you know, if anybody wants to park here in the parking, in introduced parking, give us a call, and we'll open the gate for you so you can.
Do you have the number there somewhere?
We'll put it on the next reminder,
We'll put on the reminder.
the real number.
Yeah, yeah.
I gave you the real number.
No.
So, you know, you made a mistake or someone made a mistake.
No one did.
Sorry.
One digit was off and.
I may have made a mistake.
There's free parking over there in the street.
There is, yeah. So after 5:30, there is free parking, but sometimes it's hard to find the parking, so,
That's true.
Yeah, but parking lot,
Okay.
Yeah.
Much better.
and there's space for what, 20 vehicles probably,
30
30? Okay. So.
Charging.
Oh, really?
Sure.
for one.
For one.
One vehicle. yeah.
So who makes it first?
Whoever brings their leaf gets to charge.
No.
Whoever needs it. I think.
Whoever needs it.
Yeah,
Sorry guys,
whoever
first
needs
come,
it.
first serve, I'll be here first.
Okay, so, did I miss something here? Okay, so upcoming events.
It's not just.
There you go. So November 1st, we have the actual test drive portion tomorrow, right, at the Riverside campus of the corporate event for Ottawa Hospital. So again, we did the presentation last week on the 27th. We're doing the test drives tomorrow. And then November 8th. So I'm going on vacation starting November 3rd, so I'm missing the rest of these things, but I guess you guys will have the pleasure of
Yeah, I'll be at the November 8th.
of having events and enjoying yourselves without having to hear me drone. Anyways, so November 8th, this CIRA is the Canadian Internet Registration Association, I believe. These are the people who.
They run .ca, so
Yeah.
they make sure our internet works.
Yeah, the .ca domain, yeah.
But not just the domain, they make sure they have like the infrastructure behind.
Well, it's a domain name and all that, and the
On the
services,
services.
yeah.
Yeah, and the
So-
DNS and everything.
Yeah.
Domain span.
So, so that'll be from 1 to 3 p.m. That one, there's a lot of interest already, a lot of interest.
It's because my car's gonna be.
It's not a big organization, but just about everybody wants to try an EV, okay? So this is on Bank Street, Lansdowne Park essentially, okay?
So it's open to the public.
No, this is
Corporate
just,
event.
these guys, it's a corporate event, right?
Which is the expensive.
So, next event after that is green drinks, so, second Wednesday of the month. So green drinks at Lieutenant's Bump, and that should be, I believe, at 6 is when it starts. And then, so there's a new format, right? So you probably remember the old format, those of you who've been to green drinks, there'd be someone doing a presentation and then there'd be, social after, right? The new format will maybe have a few people introducing themselves. So Jorge was there last time and he introduced himself and what he was doing. So we'll probably have that again, and then people will break off into groups and network, okay? So next event after that, the 19th, this is a community event that we are adding to the schedule. So for those who are volunteers for the EVX, I said that the last community event was October 1st, but actually the city has asked us to add one on November 19th. So what we'll be doing is we'll be doing a double hitter or double header. We'll do from 9 to 12 in the morning in the Bayshore area. So I'm not sure exactly the location. It'll probably be the same place as we were last time. We were near Andrew Hayden Park.
You'll notify us on your website.
Yeah, it will be on the website, yeah. And then there'll be one at near Fisher Meadowlands from 1 to 4 p.m. on the same day. Now, we're taking a bit of a risk here because it's November 19th and the weather might not be good, okay? So if the weather is really bad, we're probably gonna cancel this, okay? Because we don't want to be driving in a snowstorm, right? So, so if the weather is good, this will, sorry?
Don't change the slide, yeah, I'm just putting this on my calendar.
Okay, so if, actually I should add that to we don't have the full details though, so I won't add it yet. It's in the spreadsheet for volunteering for EX, for those who are on there. Okay,
Okay, yeah.
cool. You have to be trained in EX and all that.
Yeah.
It's just a spreadsheet, so, Cars and coffee are going to continue into November, okay? Hopefully the weather cooperates, probably, if it doesn't, it's inside. and-
Yeah, so
Right?
pick places that have decent inside space.
Yeah, okay. And decent parking?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's, yeah.
In Alma, it was a bit touchy, it was on the street, so.
Yeah.
We managed to find some spots, but, it was a bit tough. So November 5th, Bridgehead on Irish Street in Ottawa, that's at, right beside the IKEA, right?
It's next to the chapters,
Next to the chapters, right?
Yeah.
The same,
IKEA.
same complex as IKEA. November 12th, Carp Road in Carp.
So Alice's has limited parking, but it's on street and there's like angle. But it's carp, so there's lots of space if you want to park
Yeah.
around. It's not far.
Okay, so that's November 12th. The November 19th, we have that city event instead, so we will not have a Cars and Coffee. 26th, that's my brother's birthday. Quaker Coffee on, in Alma, so we're going a bit further with this one, which is great. It's great to go a bit out of the.
And what time do these things?
These are all 10 to noon.
Yeah.
Okay, they're all 10 to noon. These are on our website. They're already on our website. I put them on there this morning. Okay. So, any questions on that? Any other questions on events? No? Okay, so if you're thinking about events after, November, we're still talking about it and figure out what we're gonna do, but we expect to do, less test drives and except for the concierge service, they're going to do a bit of there. But aside from that, we're probably not gonna do test drives until the spring, okay? What we'll do though, is we'll do various community engagement things at libraries and things like that. We'll go and talk about EVs and all that. So if you want to participate in that, you're more than welcome to participate. It's always good to have more people. So we'll do presentations on EV 101 and charging stuff and whatever.
Next year, we should, get in the Santa's Parade of Light. We're electric, we can just light it up.
Light her up.
Are you too late for that this year?
Yes, it's November.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's around the 26th of November.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
about that time.
I may keep Cars and Coffee going all winter. I haven't decided.
Okay,
But it'll be more limited and it'll be more indoors.
yeah. Okay.
So,
That's the one here in the downtown.
no, that's
the-
a bunch of Equators, but this one's in Almont. This is their, the place where they actually make the coffee.
Yeah, so it's, Almont's what, 50 kilometers away? 40?
Yeah, that's half an hour. Yeah,
No.
it's not too far.
No, it's not, it's a nice little drive. so.
Yeah.
Great coffee.
Comes
from my country.
So anyways, if, whenever we have other opportunities like that, we'll talk about it, and if you're interested, you'll be more than welcome to join us for the other stuff, but we'll need a lot less volunteers because we're not doing test drives, right? So the test drives have been required lots and lots of volunteers, so. One thing I forgot to put on the agenda here is the 22nd. It's not on here, so the 22nd is when the people who actually volunteered to one of the events got an invitation for it. So if you have an invitation, you're invited. If you haven't got an invitation, well,
Volunteer.
sorry, but if you're volunteering, you don't get it. So we'll be at I don't remember what the place is, but anyways, we're gonna be having a little get together there. And it should be fun. It's to celebrate the great success we had this year. And again, for those volunteers who are online right now or here in the room, thanks again for all the time that was spent and.
So the deadline to
Success.
register is today.
For what?
The
We're
register
not registering.
is today.
For what?
For the Santa plate parade.
Today?
Yeah.
It's too late.
No,
It's too late.
no.
I'm not doing it.
Look,
Next year.
It's,
look, we could decorate the trailer in the car. I mean,
Oh my God.
we need to.
it's
On
on the 26th,
the 26th, yeah.
Carry on.
so we got an event.
We're busy anyway.
Okay, next.
So Sam, if you want to do it, I'm game to do it, but you'd have to.
If
decorate
We already have
it.
a big event.
No, it's
Well,
the,
it's the other-
It's not a big
the
event.
coffee.
Oh, it's a coffee event.
So,
Yeah, eat into my Cars and Coffee. Can't do that.
no, it's evening. It's a.
We'll talk on the way back.
We'll figure it out.
Okay. Anyways, so, yeah, because actually on the list I had originally, that was part of it. It was on there. But we just hadn't pursued it. So, okay. Anything else to mention? I think that's it.
38 subscribers.
38 now. Okay, so I would encourage everyone to go to our YouTube channel and subscribe, and then you'll get some really good stuff. These recorded meetings, really interesting. You could watch them at twice the speed if we're too slow.
And I do edit out some dead air and stuff.
Yeah, that's what I usually do. Is I usually watch stuff at least 1.5 times, so I get more content in. Okay, so
All right,
next-
so let me just close up for the YouTube people.
Yeah.
So if you're on YouTube watching our meetings, thank you for watching.
On YouTube. Can you post on YouTube?
Not yet. It's coming.
Oh,
This
okay.
is the third.
So it's okay.
All our meetings are posted on YouTube. Raymond gets confused by this. But if you show up in person or virtually for our live meetings, you can participate in the roundtable that's about to happen. But for our YouTube watchers, we post all of our meetings after the fact. And see you next month.
Yeah, and actually, for the YouTubers and for the ones who are watching virtually, I would invite you to take the opportunity to come and see us in person here at the Institute. It does, I mean, we're getting a room for free, but you could get some refreshments at your cost.
Raymond's buying.
No. We might buy some snacks, so, but anyways, I brought four chocolate bars today. But anyways, so we'd love to have more people come in person. Like we said earlier, I think there is parking here that you could use. And we'll get the number out for you so that you could call when you get here to get the parking, okay?